Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. Across the world, all of my Tesla fans, I am going to do a weekly update of my position because I think it's going to help a lot of traders who may be in a position, who may be thinking long term, and so forth. So, this was my fourth post because that was my fourth day in the market owning Tesla. And as you can see, the position itself overall was down. Um, Basically, every morning I've woke up, the price of Tesla has been down. And what I notice in the market is on extreme uh, bullishness in the market, Tesla has a really hard time. It's almost as if buyers are absent. And, I would expect that because the chart looks like absolute dog crap. And there's not a whole lot of information being pushed out there, um, positive, you know, about Tesla or about anything that Elon has to say. But as you guys know, I am a supply and demand trader, and I want to give my update, but I also want to share my emotions with the stock itself and just be super transparent with anybody that may be thinking about taking a position of size, or even if it's, size is perspective, it doesn't really matter. What you believe is big and what is small, to each their own. You know what I'm saying? So this specific trade, I actually put on 500 shares, and 4 days ago, and I decided right before the close to take half off because I really started to think, well, why in the world? I was just trying to think about my year. I was doing so well in January, and I think this position could ruin my emotions, as a day trader, because really what I love to do is trade, right? I'm not like a long-term investor, but to give you some background, my wife every year, it's like a running joke. She says, "John, please buy some Tesla." And I say, "Okay, honey." And what's really neat is that my alerts in this account that you're looking at are sent to our members immediately within microseconds, many milliseconds, sorry. And within milliseconds, you know exactly what I'm buying and what I'm getting out of and all that good stuff. So that way we stay super transparent, right? Well, so if I take a personal trade that's based off of, what my wife is asking me to do, you're going to see it and you get to hear about why I'm taking it. And, if you've ever read the book Simon Sinek, um, the why was a big part of me as a director. If you don't know anything about me, I was a director for a company after I retired from the Air Force, and I really enjoyed being in that position. And some of the things that I was self-taught, if you will, some of the things that I learned was from Simon Sinek. And one of the things that he says that I think is really important is that everybody understands that Android phones are actually better than an iPhone, but people buy the iPhone because of the vision of Apple. When you think about the vision of like Android, I mean, me personally, and I'm not trying to hate on anybody that has an Android, I see the picture quality, I see the phone, and I think, yeah, this is pretty cool. And I always see that like Apple comes back and basically has an update that looks a lot like what my buddy showed me on their Android 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So there's no argument there. But when I think about vision, I believe that Apple and Steve Jobs had the vision. You know what I'm saying? And so people believe in the name. And when it comes to Tesla, I believe in what Elon's all about. And so her and I, we come to an agreement that we want to be invested with Tesla. But to be fair with you, we made this agreement a long time ago. And so, I feel like, well, it would have been really fun to have, put some size in a Tesla many, many years ago, right? So there's a part of me, and again, I want to share my emotions with you that, I think to myself when I look at this chart as a supply and demand trader, we are coming into demand. The issue that we have here is that the demand zone is huge, right? And when I share it with you guys, I'm going to bring a couple charts down here. when I share with you guys these ES futures and NASDAQ futures, these futures that we trade almost every single day, we're using supply and demand from a really small time frame. And the idea is that down here we want to go long, and when we get in here, we want to pull those stops up, and we want to follow trend. And there's several different things that we do to try to stay in the trade as long as we can from this zone to this zone. Okay. Now, this, in my opinion, is even hard. And this is from an intraday perspective. There's always like all these things coming at you, news and events and your friends' opinions. And if you're listening to other people, it can be really hard. And it's easy in hindsight to come back here and go, well, there's a green box and there's a box here. That looks really easy. I could do that. Well, when we're talking about Tesla, we're talking very long term, right? I want to be in this position for a long time, but I keep thinking to myself, like, but what am I going to get out of this trade? What is the potential of this trade when I look at it from supply and demand? And I always want to think the worst, okay? So first of all, this is the active trader, and just like what you see on the on X where I'm sharing this, is you're going to see how much I'm down on the day. You're going to see the PL open and so forth. And again, I'm very transparent with this type of stuff because I think it's important for new traders out there to understand that trading is not easy. My best case scenario with this trade is, one that this green zone holds, just like when I show you this, all right? But it's the same concept. However, it is I don't expect us to go from this green box to this red box within a day. So you have to really think about it from a long-term perspective. And the first thing I do before I take a trade, and just to be, make sure we're all in the right frame of mind when we take a trade, is that I realize that this trade itself has a value of about, 47, $50,000 somewhere in there. And that I don't think the stock would go to zero, but I understand that I could lose, and I just tell myself $50,000. And I really have to think about it, because I think we as traders can get really wrapped up in the idea that we're okay with a loss, but then when we see it and we digest it, and really, really think about it, and things start to get tough, because when they say, when it rains, it pours, then there's a lot of motion in there. And there's different things that like make us euphoric, right? So for example, I could be in Tesla. So I did a great ES trade on Friday, where I made, I think, close to 200% in my butterflies, and they were really wide butterflies, and I made a couple grand, and you get euphoric and you think, all right, well, I'm a good trader, right? Things are going great, but you keep looking over, you look over, and it's here to remind you that maybe you're not a great trader. We have no idea what's going to happen here. So I have to think the worst case scenario, and I have to be real with myself that perhaps, am I okay with this big of a loss? Like, what if this gets cut in half? Like, to be very frank with you, I feel as if we could be headed down to 125. All right. Now, if we go down to 125, what I show my members is that, I want you to quickly, you can hit this plus, I think it's the minus actually. Let's see. There we go. We can hit the minus sign and we can go down here to 125, and you can get a really good idea of how much money I would be down. And the thought here is that, if let's just say that your trading kind of goes into a dark hole, right? Everybody finds those moments where, trading's not easy, and it can, you can have drawdowns for a couple weeks, couple months. It just kind of depends, right? And I want you to imagine yourself losing and being down, right, unrealized $18,000, and you're not performing well. And I have to put myself in that mind frame. Am I going to be okay with 18,000 down and accumulating losses if for some reason the market gets really difficult and it's not easy for me to trade? And that's what I'm asking you when you decide to take trades, right? And I ask myself that. And for me, before I take a trade, it's very important for me to already digest all this information and really think about, can I be okay? Can I perform well? And will I be able to bounce back? Can I wake up in the morning and, roll out of bed, have coffee with my wife, look at my phone and be like, geez, I'm down this amount. Can I still come in here and perform for my team? Can I still make trades? Will I hesitate? Will I freak out? There's a lot of different emotions that you can have. Okay. I want you to know that, again, I'm sharing my journey with you, and I hope that these videos help you so that in the future, I will be able to express these feelings with you, and telling you right now, it's like a journal, if you will, that I'm telling you that I'm okay. Let's see if I'm actually okay when the time comes. All right. And I will be very transparent with you. Now, let's just talk about the chart for a few minutes and kind of go here. Okay. So the chart has a couple red boxes on it, and basically what I'm doing is finding different time frames where we have supply, that's in your red, and then we have demand, which is in green. And like I said, this demand zone is pretty big. And when we look over here to the left, we have this chaotic candle, and this candle most likely came from news, and you can see that here. That they had earnings or something, and we can incorporate all of this really at the end of the day. But I use what's called trendy edges, and the edges are just a convenience for me. Instead of me having to draw these zones out, and I do this basically for your eyes to see, but really all I need are my lines. And you can see that that this line falls within that zone. This is a playing field of the demand zone. And my methodology says if we can't get above this zone, which we never did, that we continue to make lower highs, that we are searching or you know, in discovery of demand. Like we're looking for buyers, right? It's no different than any other brick and mortar store. If I'm an owner of a business and I want to sell my product, I know where people want to buy it, right? That's where the demand is. But when my product is too expensive, we run out of buyers. And when we run out of buyers, we put things on for sale. We bring them back to the demand levels that we know that customers want to buy at. And that's exactly what the price of Tesla is doing right now. And what happens is that the market releases a lot of information. And typically, when a stock is down, they continue to beat it down into what I call bigger pockets. So we're trying to align ourselves in supply and demand with institutional buying and selling. Okay. In theory, that's what these zones are. Okay. We identify these zones before price gets there. So we're already understanding what's supposed to happen here. For example, if you're a supply and demand zone, which I know many of you are that follow me, then you would know that this zone, even though it looks nice here, it actually came from this area. So we already know to expect Tesla to, bounce over here. But then once it bounces, we expect to bring those stops up and be careful because we understand that this type of stuff can happen. Now, the trade plan itself, there's a couple things that are bullish. And the fact that there's a lot of divergence between the cloud and current price, the fact that the weekly is actually an inside week, and the fact that we had such a hard sell off here. The next thing that I want to do, and this is impromptu now going forward. So I found my zones with you. Now I want to do some of this stuff just right now while I'm thinking about it. And on average, if we just go back for about a year, and we can get let's just kind of go, actually, let's do 2 years. All right, we're going to go all the way back to, yeah, let's just go in here. And what we can do, and especially with these type of candles, a lot of people ask me what kind of candles these are. These are trend candles, so they're hollow and they're filled. The filled candles are bearish. The hollow candles are bullish. All right, so it's just really easy for me to count. On average, what is Tesla's personality, right? Like, so what I want to know is like, we obviously have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks down here. All right. 6 weeks in a row. All right. And really, you could count this one as well. All right. Because this one had closed lower than this previous hammer right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 weeks down. Now, when I go back, I want to see, is this a normal thing for Tesla to do? 6 weeks down and then finds a bounce. How many times does that happen through the year? All right. So we can see that there are 1, 2, 3. There's 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then I got 1 inside, no big deal. Over here, we do not have consistency. We have 3 down right here. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 into some demand here. That's another trendy edge. Pops up into the cloud, comes right back down. Let's keep going. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. We got 1, and these are separated, so I will not count these if we have a bullish candle between. I'm looking for consecutive weeks down, okay? 1, 2, and then. So what you're seeing right away, what I'm seeing, I'm almost into 2022, and so far 6 weeks is not normal, okay? So I'm going to keep going back here, keep on looking. And you could just kind of glance with your eyes and tell really quick that we're looking for 6 weeks down. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Four is becoming a number that is normal. Okay, it's normal to see Tesla 4 weeks down. All right, so far I hope you're seeing that with me. And we are, what year are we on right here? So we're in 2020 now, and I can't help but I'm starting to get a little bit excited here. 2 weeks down, and I'll tell you why here in a second. All right, and whoops, I'm sorry about that. Let's go all the way back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, little baby bounce. And this 6 weeks down here happened in 2019. Okay, it's 2024, about 5 years ago. All right, and just gonna keep going over here. Man. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're getting all the way back to 2015. 1, 2, 3. I think you guys are getting the point. There's 4, actually 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 2014, 2019, 2024, right? So we're seeing like 5 years, okay? And this is just a quick, and you could go, and I'm sure you guys, some of you might have some software where you can look into this, but my point right away, and I usually only look back a year or two, okay, but I want to do that with you, together with you, just to kind of get an idea. Is what we're seeing normal? No, absolutely not. And so this is something that I put into my analysis and say, listen, if this is not routine, right, for Tesla to drop this much, we must be looking for some sort of relief bounce at least. Relief bounce, okay? So relief bounce, by definition from Trendy Methodology, all right, and I'm letting you in on this, and I promise you this really, really helps, is that we take a range, okay, and the measurement or the anchors for the Fibonacci, your coefficients are the numbers that you choose to put on the Fibonacci. So Fibonacci is the name that they use. I actually like to think of it as a ruler. And so I'm basically just measuring ranges. If I go in and I want to study something, I want to know how many times does this happen. And what I found, um, since the inception of many, many names in the market, is by measuring this, a relief bounce, what I'm looking for is a bounce to come out of demand. All right, so we've identified that. And when it bounces from a downtrend, it is considered a relief bounce if it can only bounce 23 to 38.2% of that range that you measure. So if I take my ruler or my Fibonacci's and I place them here, you're going to see that the 23.6 and the 38.2 are here. And they don't have to be perfect, but roughly 199 up into at around 213. Okay. So these are potential targets if Tesla somehow miraculously finds some kind of bid and people come in and try to buy it. Okay. You never know with Tesla, right? That's what you're getting yourself into is this stock. It responds off of supply and demand zones. Okay. It's the volatility that comes with it. It could be just sitting here above this green box and really just dinking around. And then all of a sudden, you get a news catalyst that can cause an extreme reaction in the name. It's very news driven. You're one tweet away on X for something big happening to the name, um, to the downside or upside. So please be aware of that. All right. So this is a very volatile name. It's very sensitive, if you will. And of course, there's a lot of negative information around it, like death crosses and they dropped it from the Magnificent Seven, whatever. So all of this different news around it that's not very positive. Okay. Then you have earnings coming out in April. All right. So the only thing that I'm really expecting maybe into April is if this then that if the green zone holds, then we could see a relief bounce into these areas. Now, what if I, have a big push to the upside and we come up in here and we actually build and flag and then break through this cloud, then we could see the move up into the supply zone that would put us between 245 and 250. Okay, so this would be great. This would be just expected, but it would also still be pretty good. And if we come over here and we look at these, and I like to do this just so you guys can get kind of an idea of what the position would look like on the downside and the upside. Well, if we could at least get back up to the 23.6, we're looking at around 199. So be up about what it's down right now, and barely. You know what I mean? 11337, and this could be off a little bit. But and then if we hit the 38.2 at 213, you're looking at about 5 grand. And then if we can get up to the supply zone into earnings or close to earnings, we could be looking at $12,000 to $15,000. Now, again, I want to share my emotion with you. It's that the risk to reward at this moment, because we have so much overhead supply, but such a big room of demand, meaning there's a lot of places it can go into before it finds its footing. It's a little skewed at the moment. Okay. It's a little skewed. And so that has me a little on edge about the whole idea of getting into Tesla, right now. But again, I'm taking it here as a starter. I had started 500 shares, like I said. I dropped 250 on the first day I bought it. I wasn't filling it, and it just so happens not only was I down that day, but as soon as I dropped it, they came out with some news after market about Elon not getting his compensation approved or something, right? And the stock dropped, but then the next day it rallied really hard. So overall, if I would have kept the 500 shares, I would have actually done pretty well, I think. But either way, it's not been a horrible journey yet. This is the overall sentiment. What I'm looking for is a potential bounce here. It came into the sweet spot. That's where I wanted it. Now, if we take this into a smaller time frame for this week, just going into this next possible week, what I'll tell you is that you can see here on the daily, we're still underneath the cloud. We're still underneath the 200 SMA. We're finding a little bit of support here. But what is really interesting about right now is that the market feels so extended, right? And yet you got a stock over here that can't even perform. I mean, look at the overall market in the last several weeks and look at Tesla. It's the exact opposite. And I'm not going to sit here and think on hopium that the market goes down and Tesla goes up. That would be kind of weird. So this is extremely sensitive right now to the environment, I believe, of the market. And when I'm doing my weekly analysis, which I'm working on right now, is, when I think about the market pulling back, I go, oh my gosh, what's Tesla gonna do? You know, so definitely something to think about. Now, for me, I had a question this week if I was looking at potentially selling calls against it, and I will on a pop. I want to try to get up towards that 23.38. Let's just say that I get lucky this week and we get a nice little pop and we get next to a level that I've already identified. Then I'll look at selling calls because I want to get some juicy premium, right? I don't want to do it down here on the lows and then we pop and then I'm completely wrong. So I just want to be a little careful. Now, what I am doing on this position is that I am buying Tesla put debits, okay? And I'm buying them with some time. I am buying the 125, sorry, 150 put. All right, so that puts me down here, right at this midline, if you will. 150 by 125. Okay, basically this entire area in here, in case they get a sudden uh, catalyst that's not great for the stock, in case the market dumps. And so it's a small hedge to me, and that hedge is again 104 days out, and it's at only 6%. Okay, so it's not actually overall. I apologize. It's negative 2% at the moment. So I think if it hits, then it pays me like 12 grand, and that's only for 5 contracts. So I was trying to do the math, and again, when we look over here, if I were to get down into that range, so say like 150, all right, and so that puts us about right here. That's like almost like a perfect hedge. Now, again, hedges can go to zero. Maybe nothing happens here, and price actually goes all the way up here. Then I would end up losing. I think it was a $1,200 or $1,400 trade, but I would still gain, obviously, on the way up. So I feel comfortable with that type of trade down there, and that overall is what I'm looking for on Tesla. Now I'm going to take it one more step forward. We're going to go to a quarterly because it's really important that anytime you get into a bigger trade like this, I want to be looking at the bigger picture. And it doesn't look absolutely great. We just created a supply zone here. Okay. But here's the thing, while I'm sitting here talking, I'm sure some people are like, yeah, you know, I've always been taught not to take the trade if it's underneath the 9 or it's underneath the 200 SMA. My big thing is on big charts, when we're coming into demand zones, you're never going to be above those. All right. Like it's going to be the worst thing you've ever seen. But like, I'm not one of the traders. I'd rather accumulate on the lows than trying to like sit and wait for something to move. A lot of people do this. They wait for it to move and then they start to talk about volume and they're like, "Oh, the volume looks good." But I'd rather buy it down here and then add if it comes back into like 23.6 or 38% of that bull run, then I'll add here and then we'll look for the big move. So again, you can look across the board. A lot of traders like to wait for volume, wait for things to get above things, get all these different indicators to tell them to go long. And I'm not saying it's wrong. There's just two different ways. I prefer to accumulate on the lows into demand zones. And I look forward to seeing if those demand zones work, and then I can add into the position if it does show some relative strength and can hold above, key moving averages and so forth. So quarterly, inside and down, it came into the next EMA, and from a perspective like this is really cool. We have measured the very low to the very high, and we could see that right now Tesla is between the 618, which is the golden Fibonacci, and the 50, and this is really key. I have been teaching this for many years, and my Fibonacci explains that we are between the 50 and 618. I expect a lot of choppiness, a lot of news catalysts, and things like that, and the stock that I'm looking at. And since we are at the all time between the 50 and the 618, I think it's very important to understand that conditions right now are not smooth selling. All right. So, all those things are my analysis for this week. I hope that it helps you if you're in Tesla or you're a long term trader. And hopefully, you're one of those traders that got in way back here. and you're just like having a good time and you're just sitting in profits and so forth. Another thing that I learned, which I thought was pretty cool, check this out. Um, what was I'm trying to remember I didn't realize I asked Thinkorswim since they had their last forward splits, how do you find out the price? And I want to say, I would have to remember, was it a 7 to 1 and then a 5 to 1? If it was, then what you do is you go Tesla. Okay, so it goes like this. You go Tesla, and then that, and then you do that, and then you do that, and then you do that, and you hit enter. And this would give you the price, but it's not 5 and 7, so I think I have that wrong because I know that the price is somewhere around 2,600 or something like that right now. So I'd have to go back and figure out exactly what the numbers are that I'm supposed to use in here because I do not think those are right. Yeah, those are definitely not right. So I'll find out. It's really straightforward though. If you know the forward split, that's how you do the equation, and you'll come out with the amount that it's actually trading at before it's forward splits. So Tesla's actually, I think, around 2,600 bucks. Anyways, guys, you have a good one. I'll keep updating. And again, if this helps you, please give it a like. Please share with any of your friends that might like the stock Tesla. All right, we'll see you soon.